this down a bit. Sitting there watching a little AEW. Alright, there's Bills. He's right there. And it's 10 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and lift the veil. And here I am. It is 10 o'clock. Trying out this new time just to see if this works for more people than originally scheduled, because I know I would usually go on earlier on Wednesdays, 7:30, usually, before my bedtime, because I'm 40 years old. Anyway, I'm just rambling about anything. So welcome to another episode of What the Fuck Just Happened, or WTF. So I'm your host, the name's above, and yeah, so just a few things to start off the back. I know I was just talking to Bills just before we went live, and there was a segment that I felt that if I would have tried to text it, it would take too long. So let me go ahead and explain myself. So I tweeted about a segment on AEW Wrestling. I think they're about to go off the air now. But there was a segment where Dr. Britt Baker had her in the office segment interview with Cody Rhodes. It turned into a surprise guest. Jade McCagill showed up. Her awkward delivery in her promo. She winds up smacking Cody, and then out of nowhere, what's her name? She's like, what's her name's Mini-Me. But she goes by the name of Red Velvet. She probably is like 4'11". Like Jade McCarga is probably like 5'10". This chick is probably like 4'11". So, pretty much reminds me of a mini. Like a mini Brandy Rhodes is what Red Velvet looks like. So for a second, first glance, I thought it was Brandy. So they're sitting there, and then they engage in a slap fest, and it turns out into a brawl. People being broken up, typical, everybody comes in, and mind you, this is this little enclosed, it's not really it's an open stage. So people are not just going through the door. They're actually coming around, kind of losing the immersion of that it's supposed to be an office. So that gets lost. So they're fighting each other back and forth, and it gets broken up eventually. Red Velvet gets pushed off to the side, and for some strange reason, it segues to Britt Baker, like she filmed the whole fight, so that will probably be uploaded on Twitter at some point. And she then is for some reason it cuts to her beating up on what's her face from NWA. It cuts to her attack on the big screen, and then all of a sudden it's I can't remember her name, but I know I've said I can't remember her name too many times. Rosa. I think her wrestling name is Rosa, but it's something else Rosa. But all of a sudden she's speaking, and she's talking to Britt Baker, talking about, oh, we're going to see each other, we're going to fight, blah, 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 blah. It won't be until Bash at the Beach, or whatever they want to call their beach version of their pay-per-view. And then it's just like, it's like everything that it happened, I could tell it was pre-edited or whatever. It just didn't go well together. The way I'm explaining it even is pretty much the exact way it felt watching it. Like the visual definitely matched the audios as far as the way I was explaining it. So, oh yeah, speaking of Tony, he did make an appearance, a cameo per se, because somebody got swerved. There was apparently supposed to be a tag team match, but Kenny Omega switched up his teammates. So that's a little something right there. So, okay, so why are we here? Because we were here last week, and we're here again this week. So this is season 2. Like I said last week, I decided to do this based on well, it was already episodic, but based on just season 1, season 2, and we're in season 2. 10 episodes per quarter per season. So we're in season 2. This is episode 12 overall, season 2, episode 2. So again, why we're here. So I wanted to talk about the Washington football team. So the season ended, I'm not going to say prematurely, because they extended their season beyond the regular season, which I was not expecting. They hung with Tampa, ultimately falling short. And it was a good game. Matter of fact, the grades from the highest rated players, let's see, I think out of the top 3, 2 of those players came out of that Tampa Washington game. That was Tom Brady and Taylor Heineke. Heineke had the higher rating, believe it or not. So that was a shocker. But we could have won that game, but I was not expecting Washington to win that game. You know, somebody in the chat thought it was going to be a blowout, but that's another story. So, talking about the Washington football team, just go through a review. Not going to do like an in-depth type of thing. I'm just some high points in the season. Probably go through some of the position groups just to see how, like, Todd Bowles used to play for the Washington Redskins back when they were called the Redskins. So they're a Washington football team now. So, well, that was the thing, Bills. I told you he was going to do the job. And he did exactly what I thought he was going to do. Remember, I told you this? I was like, yeah, maybe, you know, he's a Washington alumni. Maybe he'll do the job. And he did exactly what I told you he was going to do. But that's his defense. That's what he calls. You see, he put on pressure late, and they finally got to him. But by then, we were still down by possession, so we could have pulled that out. All right. So the second thing we'll talk about will be the future of Star Wars. So as we have been hearing and we've gotten confirmation, EA no longer has the exclusive license to making Star Wars. Hopefully that's a start of furthering the non-exclusivity of any type of genres of games, even sports games. You know, take the fact that right now EA Sports has an exclusive deal to make simulation football games right now, and that's kind of silly in itself. But anyway, we're going to talk about that for a little bit. And then last but not least, I will talk about the fallout from last week's Capitol Siege. So arrests have been made, people are being charged, people are being traitors, you know, people are double speaking, grandstanding. Our president was impeached for the second time. We got it all going on. So once again, the world is laughing at us. Ha ha, we tried to tell you he was a nut. And some of your people, yeah, so we'll talk about that last. So let's make sure I got this straight here, because I finally got it figured out. So we're just going to go to the first thing. And you know what's funny? That I just used this logo. I was going to use another logo, and I was going to go for another series of slides, but I think this is appropriate. I think this season was a W, even though we didn't win in the playoff game and didn't, because every team's goal at the start of the season is to win a Super Bowl, and for us, we fell short. But everybody can agree, and we can all agree here, we went further than what we were supposed to go. We were supposed to be a dumpster fire from start to finish. It was supposed to end in a horrific plane crash, but it didn't. Had one of those hard landings, you know, kind of the landing gear didn't come down all the way, and we kind of like bellied up on the runway, but we fell short. the watery grave that we would have received if we would have just tried to fly something that was broken. I know it was a bad analogy, but anyway, I don't care. Fuck it. I know my expectations for this season was tempered quite a bit. I felt like, okay, new coach. And this is like before the whole thing with the exposés and the subtraction of the name and logo. I felt like I didn't expect. I figured they would finish last in the division, around the bottom. You know, just find out who they got so they can go into the second year under Coach Rivera as, hey, what's up? So Kiki Kalka, I wonder who that is. So welcome. So under Coach Rivera, like, just to go back a little bit, first year coaching the squad, trying to figure out where his players are going to fit in his system, offensively, defensively, special teams, and just going through the season. We went into the season with Dwayne Haskins as our incumbent starter. Unfortunately for Haskins, he didn't finish the season with the team. That's a story within itself. I think the story of Dwayne Haskins will go a little something that it started with a flash on Instagram. I can, but that will have to be like a lot later. Right now, can't do it at this moment. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Felt like something was in my ear. But so Dwayne Haskins obviously finished the season as a free agent because he started out, I wouldn't say he started out hot. I'm like, because we won our first game of the season over the Philadelphia Eagles. Actually, he was one of the reasons why we won that game, because he showed leadership, he showed passion, he showed like he was willing to do whatever it took to win that game. And the team took that to heart and did exactly that. They beat the shit out of Philadelphia in the second half of that game, sacking Carson Wentz 8 times. And then we went into a tailspin. You know, couldn't quite find our way. Dwayne Haskins started regressing. Defense was letting out big plays. And then I think we got to the point where we were 2-7. Then we wound up Dwayne Haskins gets benched after the 4th game. Kyle Allen, who was a holdover with Ron Rivera at Carolina, starts the next few games, gets hurt in a couple of them. Which brings us to Alex Smith, who started out the year as a third-string quarterback. There's a whole lot of stuff that went on this season. So Alex Smith winds up finishing the game in LA, and then we go back to Kyle Allen, in which he suffers a gruesome, similar injury, not the exact same injury as Alex suffered, because Jabril Peppers wanted to leg whip somebody. It wasn't on purpose. I do believe it wasn't on purpose, but he pretty much he didn't leg whip anybody on purpose, but he pretty much caused the injury to Kyle Allen. So Kyle Allen goes out, Alex Smith comes in, Smith finishes the game. He got real hot in that game. It was probably the best he ever looked. And then I call it heat check. And if those that are not familiar in sports, when you start looking at people and you yelling heat check, like if I'm looking at somebody who's been hot all game, are they still hot? That's pretty much what heat check. Whenever I yell heat check, like on certain plays, like y'all watching the sports games with me, y'all probably not even thinking about the term. But heat check, I'm like, okay, is he still hot? Is that person still in the zone? Are they still in the moment where nothing can go wrong? And his heat check ran out. He wound up throwing 2, I think, costly interceptions that lost that game against the Giants. And we finished the season. Alex Smith winds up pulling up lane with his calf. Unfortunately, to his already miraculously repaired right leg. So he suffered a calf injury. He doesn't have much of a calf. So we had to go back to Dwayne. Dwayne, at this point, is done. He wasn't prepared. He wasn't willing. He didn't show any passion. You can tell the way he was moving. And I'm a communication studies major, body language, all that. I'm pretty good at figuring shit out. Like, I've been able to tell people about other players on other sports teams, like Deshaun Jackson checking out in the middle of a game. He wasn't limping. That's just how he moves when he checks out. And that's what happened. And that's a different story. But Dwayne Haskins, in the game he started late in the season with the NFC East Championship at stake against the Carolina Panthers, lays an egg. Like I said, no passion, looked like he wasn't prepared, and he eventually got pulled in the fourth quarter. Gets pulled in the fourth quarter for Taylor Heineke, which sets up Alex Smith to start the next game against Philly. We wound up winning that game. Controversy on the other side. Doug Peterson, who committed a fireable offense and was finally fired a week later, subs Jalen Hurts for Nate Sudfeld. So we win that game. We're in the playoffs. We're the NFC champs. The New York Giants are crying. Tell them bitches to win 7 games or 8 or 9 or 10. Maybe we wouldn't be worried about that. But you won 6 games. You may have swept us, but y'all bitches won 6 games. Win a 7th one. Y'all would have. At least y'all knocked out Dallas first. That was y'all job. Knock out Dallas. Fuck them. But what was it? So we wind up starting Taylor Heineke because Alex Smith can't go, and Taylor Heineke plays out of his mind in that play. He literally did nothing wrong. And football is one of those sports that 1, 2, 3 people can do nothing wrong and you still lose the game. Because this was the game that we went up against the greatest of all time. There was a little bit of, I believe folks took an L when they tried to make this story bigger than what it was. This story had no legs, but somehow somebody got in the wood shop and created some peg legs to have this story stand up. And that was this whole thing about Chase Young running off the field after winning a game the week before, talking about, I want Tom. Here I come, Tom. That was not a story. I tried, Bills, you take a L for this because you hyped it up too, because that led you to believe that we were going to get blown out. And since that didn't happen, you take a L specifically for that, because for you it was point, counterpoint, bulletin board material that really wasn't bulletin board material. If anything, the wrong Chase was being brought up here, because apparently Chase Claypool of the Pittsburgh Steelers put up bulletin board material that was much worse than what everybody tried to make Chase Young out to be. This man talked about Cleveland's going to get clapped next week. Pittsburgh got clapped in the first quarter. And Pittsburgh got clapped in the first quarter. And Cleveland was just cruising after that. So the fact that you had the second pick in the draft and the greatest of all time is why everybody attached to this story, while at the same time Chase Claypool get to go underneath the radar with his guaranteed victory over Cleveland after losing to them the week before. Pittsburgh lost 2 straight against the Browns. They lost against their subs, and they got clapped by their starters. So I don't want to hear anything about Chase Young providing bulletin board material, because Tom Brady, there's no extra. I'm like, Tom Brady in that game performed the way Tom Brady. There was nothing extra he did. He just did exactly what he normally does in the playoffs. I'm going to tell you what Tampa was doing during that game. They were holding the fuck out of everybody. Chase Young got held. Deron Payne got held. Jonathan Allen got held. Montez Sweat got held. They were holding like it was no tomorrow. And the refs missed it. The only holding call they called on any of the linemen was against us. And it wasn't even a hold. So that was really pretty much the game, because Tom Brady was protected the whole entire time by the refs and the holding that wasn't called. And Chase Claypool, so you take another L. Then who was it, Bills? Who was it that did the video that was talking about, oh, it was a bad loss, but next week they'll get clapped? Who was it? Cause it was on his Instagram Live. That wasn't Juju. Claypool said it after they lost. After they lost the playoff game, or after they lost the game before the playoff game? Because he literally said Cleveland will get clapped next week. No, whatever. Boo. It was Claypool. Cause look, it was Claypool, because I looked at that video. It said Chase on the main screen, which was Chase. Anyway, the real story was in Pittsburgh, not with Chase Young. So I don't get an L for that. You do, because you were part of the mob that wanted this game to be a blowout because Chase Young provided bulletin board material. Fuck out of here with all that. Anyway, so Tom Brady did what he did. And you still get an L because we lost by 8. So there you go. Anyway, so I think the season was a success based on the fact that we weren't expected to get here. We weren't expected to face Tampa in the first round, to go against Tom Brady and hang with him and have our quarterback through his overall play outperform Tom Brady. Tom Brady passing wise impressive. 350 plus yards. Was it 368? 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Was only sacked twice, and that was towards the end when the offensive line wasn't holding anybody. And even then, Tom Brady, a smart man, he saw pain and ducked. Smart move. I would have ducked too if I seen Deron Payne after anyway. And get Heineke to fight. What? Man, he was lighting up Tampa Bay's defense. Just because you're a transplant fan because you hate New England, don't hate on Taylor because he lit up your front running team ass defense because you want to protest Bill Belichick. Anyway, so the season was a success. A team with no name. We swept the Cowboys. We swept the Eagles. We got swept by the Giants. We pretty much broke the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their season ended after we beat them. Cleveland just cleaned up the rest of it. So and it was like Ron Rivera beat cancer. We beat Pittsburgh. We won the NFC East, even though we finished 7-9, which is not something to be proud of. That we had a record of 7-9. to Bills. You're continuing to suffer L's because now you're just trolling on first names. Okay, all right. That's a reach, by the way. You know what you're reaching for? An L. That's what you reach for. You grab that sucker. But anyway, so what I really want to do now, sticking with the Washington football team, is that we're just going to go through and just talk about, the different position groups. And start with the head coach, Ron Rivera. So Ron Rivera was much needed for his organization. Again, the organization was in disarray the season before. Jay bitch-ass Gruden got fired in midway through the season. Thank God that happened. I'm glad that bitch may be out of a job again. Because he doesn't deserve to coach anywhere. And now, unfortunately, Bill Callahan had to clean up after his ass. It's like Biden cleaning up after Trump. That's what it felt like. And it definitely felt more like that when Ron Rivera took over. So, Ron Rivera, with his personality, his philosophy, and pretty much his no-nonsense, way of approaching things, and also that gambler mentality. People in the Madden community were getting mad over the X factor of the gambler, but hey, if they ever apply X factors to coaches, that would be Ron Rivera, the gambler, and also no BS either. So Ron Rivera pretty much gave everybody a chance because this was a season like none other. There was no preseason games. There was very little training camp. Training camp was basically practicing and scrimmaging against each other. It was pretty much what training camp was. No mini camps, no OTAs due to the pandemic and COVID. So I like how he approached the season. He basically, the first 4 games, and I saw it as clear as day, it was preseason. Even though it was the regular season, treated it like a preseason game, because every time they were asking, what is he doing? He wasn't calling timeouts during the first 4 games. So I could see that was pretty much preseason. That was preseason mentality, because after the 4th game, he started calling timeouts at key moments. He started looking at game situations and what people would do. So that the whole season, the way it went about as far as his decisions that he made, he put stuff out there, he kept stuff close to the vest, pretty much sets it up that this coach definitely is a coach for the players. He stands up for you in the open. He calls you out in the open. I'm like, remember he called out his linebackers. Like, hey, you need to be a little bit more aggressive. We got first rounders on the defensive line group, but they can't do it by themselves. And in the back end with the defensive backs, they gotta play tighter and stuff like that. So he's not afraid to call people out, but and hold people accountable. He's also not afraid to hold himself accountable, because just the other day he admitted that it was a mistake to just give one quarterback the job going in. He's like, you know what? It was a mistake. I should have made it more of an open competition. And I can dig that. When you look back, if you want to hold other players accountable, you be prepared to hold yourself accountable, or somebody else to hold you accountable. So that also should foreshadow into what next season is going to be quarterback wise. And I'm keeping it at the coaching level because we're going to go to the offensive coordinator, Scott Turner. Now, mind you, this is a case where definitely going to treat this one as a first timer, because I guess it's the first time he called plays. So trust me, on Twitter, people saw the tweets whenever he would call these dumbass plays and how some play sequences didn't seem in order. I lived and died by the fact that because remember, the season before, I went through a whole season where Jay Gruden wouldn't adjust it to anything and had no identity but to pass the ball all the time. It was like, well, we just gotta keep executing and blah, 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 blah. That shit didn't work. So at least with Scott, I got adjustments at halftime. It's almost like I swear, being that I grew up with Joe Gibbs as the coach, it's like starting off with Madden 05, with everything that's in Madden 05, and then going through the Maddens after, like Madden 10, Madden 11, and then Madden 13 a little bit, and then now approaching Madden 19, 20, and 21, all of a sudden seeing stuff that's back in the game that should have stayed in the game the whole entire time. I know it's a long-winded analogy, but that's what it felt like when I went from a coach. I started out with Joe Gibbs back in the 90s, would make adjustments to everything. Coordinators would make adjustments to everything, to coaches that would not make an adjustment, didn't know what the adjustment was, couldn't even adjust his jock strap if he had the chance. But and then now to see Scott Turner, Ron Rivera, Scott Turner, and even the defensive coordinator, I can't remember his name, he's a Trump supporter, Jack Del Rio, make adjustments at halftime. And this will carry over to the defensive coordinators, Jack Del Rio as well, is that halftime adjustments to teams, adjustments in approaches on how you. That's what I liked about those three levels of the coaching staff. But like I said, Scott Turner definitely had plenty. He has plenty to correct. Like, he has to understand the game a bit better. If he can be anything like his father, we're definitely in for a treat, and we've seen flashes of it. So, Scott, just get that shit straight. Know what you want to know, your personnel. Know what you want to call. Understand you are trying to set a tone, because the defensive side of the ball pretty much set the tone going in the next season, and that goes to Jack Del Rio. So, Jack Del Rio, you did a tremendous job with adjustments, with dealing with injuries, putting players in position to succeed. I believe you did a great job of that. Players that were buried in the depth chart got a chance to play. People that got to play that had no business being on the field finally taken off the field. Troy Apke should stay on special teams. But you end the season with Jeremy Reeves at free safety. I think you keep him there. Cameron Curl, rookie, and played his position very well. He came in for Collins, who got hurt in the game earlier, like in the middle of the season. Pretty much has taken his position, but I don't see nothing wrong with having Collins and Curl in the game at the same time. If you are gonna have, because Curl could play a tight end, he can cover a little bit. I would say keep him on a tight end. Don't put him on a receiver in a slot. Just have him cover a tight end. You can have Collins in there. You can have Curl. This is setting up for next year, obviously. So, but overall with Jack Del Rio, I liked how he was able to put players in position to succeed, and also what he was able to do with certain blitz packages, how they felt like it was like an aggressive expansion to our defense compared to last year. Last year, our defense was pedestrian. Did nothing. We had some of the same players, but we didn't have Chase Young, and Montez Sweat was a rookie last year. And we were in a 3-4. So that was the other thing. We switched to the 3-4. We switched to the 4-3, but I really honestly saw a hybrid. Like, we didn't know what defensive lineup we had, because Chase could be standing, he could be down in the dirt. Anybody could have been doing that. So, yeah, I liked Jack Del Rio as a defensive coordinator. I'm glad everybody's going to be back next year. So, let's go to the quarterback position. So, obviously, this is the group that we have to focus on. Like, not for this stream, but I mean, like, overall, because we do not have a clear winner we don't know if Alex Smith is going to be back, because his story is miraculous. He'll get comeback player of the year, but I feel like he's done. I feel like he's going to have that talk. He's already had this talk with his family. They already winced when he first came back, and Aaron Donald jumped on his back and he carried him for like 2 yards before he finally like dropped to the ground. But that calf injury, when you have a normal calf, you normally are able to get over the injury within a week or two. But he doesn't have much of a calf there. So little injuries like that to that leg is much more significant than what it would under normal circumstances. So I don't think Alex Smith is going to be back. I think if you're going to have an open quarterback competition, I think you do draft a quarterback, but you leave it to Kyle Allen and Taylor Heineke to battle it out, because you're going to have OTAs, you're going to have minicamp, you're going to have preseason training, you're going to have all that. So that will be back next season. I wouldn't rule out a trade for a QB that's on the up and up. Wouldn't mind having possibly Dak Prescott, but it also depends on whether you want to spend a lot of money, and we'll see what happens there. So, but I would say I was okay with Kyle Allen. I was surprised by Taylor Heineke, and Alex Smith was serviceable. He wasn't good. He wasn't bad. He was in the middle, but you can tell that he's at the end. So, and he's going to cost a lot of money if he's still on the team. So, for his health, I would hope he would think better of it and just say, hey, I was able to get this team to the playoffs. I finished with a winning record overall, which is better than, how many Washington quarterbacks? There's not been a Washington quarterback that's had a winning record since Mark Rippon, I believe. No, Brad Johnson. Maybe Brad Johnson. But either Brad Johnson, Mark Rippon has had a winning record after they left the organization. Alex Smith would have accomplished that. With all the hell that was going on, salute, but you need to retire, buddy. So, running backs, I'm going to put this all in a group. Running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. So, obviously, the main weapons are going to be Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin. And Logan Thomas. Sometimes I had to jog my own memory to get some of these names because, when it comes to recall, I've suffered too many concussions to keep certain names in the rotation until whatnot. So Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, and Logan Thomas. Those are your main leaders at those positions. We definitely need to get more targets at wide receiver. J.D. McKissick definitely is a weapon. Him and Antonio Gibson at running back are definitely weapons. Like, both can line up in the slot. Both can run the ball. Antonio Gibson more than anything. Antonio was slowed by the turf toe, and you could tell, and Bills knows, when you have turf toe and you're trying to run the ball, first of all, you lose your speed and your ability to... you lose your speed because you can't push off. You have a hard time pushing off. It really is about a pain threshold recovering from a turf toe and playing on it. I've never had it, thank God. Now that I think of it, I've never really had a significant injury playing football, so thank God for that. But turf toe is no joke. You rarely hear about it, but once it hits, and when I saw that was the injury that he suffered, I was like, oh, he needs to just rest it. And he even said so himself that he needed to rest it. So, but they definitely need another tight end opposite Logan Thomas. They definitely need more weapons at wide receiver. I don't know who could be out there, who we could grab. I know there's somebody available. But overall, I was really proud of this group, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. I think they did a good job for what they were able to do. Offensive line, I'm going to say outstanding. I'm going to say outstanding because we're coming off losing Trent Williams. And we had to figure out that left side while the right side had to take up a lot of the load, in which they were struggling for a little bit. But as the season progressed, them as a unit did really well. Especially when we got Lucas back. because remember we went through a couple of people. One person went down after the first play. It was a rookie from LSU. So I think this group did good. I think we should definitely go after another starter, maybe at left guard. Get some linemen for depth and just see what happens next year. Definitely need some athletes at that position. That would be more athletes at that position. Because I'll tell you, Trent Williams, as big as he was an athlete. And he just he just used the 49ers because he didn't sign an extension. You know, if he wanted to come back here, if he wanted to buy in, I'm sure I would welcome him back with open arms. Trent, you always welcome to come back to Washington. Don't worry about these other fans. These fans, they hold grudges. They can't even go to... They can't even let go of the fact they were no longer the Redskins. So, you know, if they can't do that, then, you know, fuck them. Trent, if you want to come back, give us a hometown discount. Only team that drafted you, first team that drafted you, give us a discount. We're good. So we'll go there. So that's that. Oh yeah, one thing. Just go back to the wide receiver group. Steven Sims needs to get in the fucking game. The reason why you drop passes because you have ADD. That's the only explanation I have at it. Because when you drop passes, we know where your eyes are. They're not on the ball. And it's not a situation at Carlos Rogers. It's a situation where you're waiting for the hit. You're scared to get hit. It's that too. You got ADD and you're scared to get hit. Trust me, I've done that before. Not that many times. Not as many times as you have. You did it on punt return. You were clutching your pearls, not the ball, and cost us points against Carolina. Need focus. You're gonna get hit. You're a small guy. Get the ball. Trust your catch the ball. Secure the ball. Trust the fact that you're faster and quicker than everyone else on the field. You do that, you'll be just fine. If you can't do that, you're gonna get cut. So, all right. So, obviously, defensive line, edge rushers, the number one, the best position in this whole football team. Literally, all first rounders. Well, technically, it didn't start out that way because remember, we had Matt Ioannidis, and he was our major run stopper. I'm like, Daron Payne's a run stopper, but when he was, because remember, Allen wasn't really. They were all rotating in. Allen wasn't the starter day one. It was, or was it Allen and Ioannidis and not Payne? I can't remember the first play. And remember, starters are only people who are there on the field for the first play. So if you rotate in, you get that defensive line got plenty of play. But you know, Chase Young, Montez Sweat. My only thing is not enough you can say about them too. They provided enough highlights, along with Daron Payne to provide highlights. I think, honestly, I think our defensive line as a group produced more highlights than I think all the other positions combined. Don't hold me on that, but I think there was really not a lot they did wrong. And then you had Kerrigan come in. He actually got the team sack record. Unfortunately, he probably won't be back next year because he wants to have a bigger role. He wants to be a starter, which, again, I describe a starter as a person who's on the field for the first play of the game at their position. I'm making it simpler than what it is. It's basically he wants more snaps. His snap count went down as the season went on, and I can understand. You want to play more. He just wants to play more. It's not whether he wants to be a starter. He just wants to play more, and I get it. He still feels like he has stuff in the tank. It'll probably be someplace else, unfortunately. So the next group, the linebacking core, probably it was mixed with them, because at first they weren't really aggressive. They got called out. Then it became aggressive, and then they suffered a couple of injuries that kind of limited what they could do. They brought in some people off the street. They got torched by tight ends and anything that was across the middle, underneath. I felt like the defensive backs didn't have the underneath help that they could have, and then at times the defensive line didn't have the reinforcements that they're supposed to be. They're called linebackers for a reason. They are reinforcements for the defensive line, and when the reinforcements don't arrive, you get routed. That's just the way it is. So I think having more athletic linebackers, somebody who can cover the tight end, so we don't always have to bring in curl or or get rid of a linebacker to put in a defensive back to guard a tight end or something of that nature. And then if they run the ball in that situation, they're screwed, because even though Curl can tackle his ass off, him and Collins can tackle. Collins, he's kind of iffy at times at tackling, but he can tackle. So I think they just need to get more athletic, faster. They already fast. Holcomb is pretty fast. He just has to get more experience. So I don't know what's going on with Reuben Foster, because he was on IR. It looked like he was slated to come back, but it didn't happen. So I don't know. And let's see. So defensive backs felt like they were just like the fallout of the front seven. I felt like Ronald Darby definitely earned a paycheck to stay with the team. Felt like Kendall Fuller was hot at the beginning of the season and kind of tailed off towards the end. I'm like, he was solid, but there were interceptions. Like in the playoff game, that last pass that pretty much sealed it for Tampa, I felt like if he just looked up at any, I know they're playing man-to-man defense. I know it's hard you don't want to lose track of the receiver, but at some point you got to be looking at the receiver and then thinking the ball's coming. And then just trust your instincts and be like, oh, I could have picked this off. But it didn't happen. So felt like he tailed off. He got cold towards the end. We definitely, I would like to see them get a true cover safety. Definitely more depth at the corner spot, but I would like to get them to get a true cover safety. And Reeves can be like the backup, but Reeves actually did a good job when he was in there. He did better than Troy Apke, who couldn't cover a damn cold. And for some reason, you're the free safety. Why was this band stepping up and letting people go by him? I'm like, the reason why he got so many tackles because he allowed people to get behind him, and because he was so fast, he could track him down and then tackle him. It kind of boosted his stats, tackling wise. But you don't want to have a whole bunch of tackle stats as a free safety. That means you did something wrong. If somebody underneath did something wrong, the whole thing could happen. And then, so we move on to special teams. Kicker, what's the name? Struggled. Can't remember his name at the second. I'm basically doing this all off of recall memory. I'm not trying to look up anything because I don't want to lose the rhythm of the show. But he pretty much struggled. I'll probably look for it real quick because I gotta be fair. Kicker out of Florida State. Let's look it up real quick. That's just crazy that I can't remember his name. Right, kicker. It wasn't Tress Way because he's the punter. Dustin Hopkins. Okay, so Dustin Hopkins definitely struggled this year. A lot of people were calling for his job, which I was just like, no. His first year has really struggled, so let him go through the struggle. And he pulled out of it. He really didn't miss much after he went through that struggling period, and that's faith in a player's ability to dig themselves out of a hole, and he was able to do that. And then Tress Way, all-pro punter, all the respect in the world. He deserves all the accolades. He didn't do anything. He another case where he didn't make any mistakes. None. So nothing there. I don't know how old he is, but he keeps kicking the way he does. Oh yeah, he also wins an Oscar because he did draw that one roughing the kicker call. I thought that was pure genius. Tress Wade becoming another Pat McAfee. All right, I see Pooh's in the chat. Spectacular Pooh, what's up? I see you. So, all right, so let me see. So, you just got home. All right. Well, at least you're safe. You're home. It's probably cold out. Hopefully you got some hot chocolate or whatever. I just got finished pretty much with the season review for the Washington football team. So, but just to wrap it up, I had fun watching this season. It was fun watching this team. It was fun watching this team start out the way they were into what they ended up as. Even though it was below 500, I don't like that. Don't like that at all. But everyone else finished with 6 games or less. So, hey, take a division title the way, the Saints took a division title. Unfortunately, we should have been the team that knocked off a favorite. We definitely could have beaten Tampa, but it wasn't meant to be. So Tampa's playing New Orleans. So the battle of the geriatric quarterbacks will be taking place in New Orleans. So that's that. So let's see, what time is it? Cool. I'm glad that took up a lot of time because that was the plan. So we're just gonna blitz through these last couple. So if you haven't heard, Lucasfilm Games is back, and the story here is that Star Wars is no longer exclusive to EA. I wish I had confetti. I'd be throwing a whole bunch of it up here. I wish I had a graphic or whatever, but EA is no longer an exclusive maker of Star Wars content that will be canon, because as of today it was confirmed that Ubisoft is teaming up with Lucasfilm Games to do an open world Star Wars game in the future. So I don't know when this game. I haven't really been reading articles. I just figured I'd just tell you guys off of what I've seen on Twitter. Like I said, this show pretty much about probably minimum research, majority knowledge. So if I'm able to say a lot, it's because I'm going off of pure knowledge, a little bit of research. But if there's stuff that I bring to you guys that I don't know anything about, obviously the research will be a little bit more and the knowledge will be a little bit less. But then after that, the knowledge will be here and the research will go down. That's just the way it works. But Ubisoft Massive is the studio that did The Division. So they're going to be using the Snowdrop engine for this game, and I like both the Division and Division 2. It'll be interesting to see what type of game this will be. And I wonder, the main thing will be what type of what story are they gonna tell? What era are they gonna tell this story in? I know some people have wanted a stealth Star Wars game. We've seen a lot of action Star Wars games. We've seen a lot of real-time strategy Star Wars games. We've seen a lot of platform Star Wars games. A lot of action, adventure, single-player story type Star Wars, and multiplayer Star Wars as well. Battlefront and Rogue Squadron or the Squadron or whatever they want to call that last game. So definitely is good news to the gamers. This is a win for us because, like one person stated, when you have more studios working on a genre, I don't know why I had this problem saying I say genre instead of genre. But when you have multiple studios and multiple companies working in the same genre, it inspires innovation. Folks don't get stale. Competition is good. So hopefully that spreads to more to sports titles, because we definitely need more companies working on sports titles, especially since most of the leagues are not most of the games are not exclusive, and Madden is less exclusive than what it really was. But they really need to challenge that simulation aspect, because no, they ain't just say that's bullshit. Get rid of that, and allow these other studios to make whatever football game they like. EA can't be afraid of competition, and it's just sad that the NFL, even though the NFL offered the exclusive deal in the first place and put us in this hole of pro football, but either way, so that's good news. We're gonna get more Star Wars. There's a lot of Star Wars content coming out this year, so I'm just ready for it. So, all right. So last thing we're gonna talk about. Yes, this is still a thing. So last week I talked about this. Basically, was talking about it as it was wrapping up, because literally this was going on as I went live. So I think at the time the House was getting together, the Senate, House, Congress as a whole was just getting back into session, because they had to clean a lot of shit up. They had to these people that were literally just in the Capitol. That's Capitol spelled for O. There's a reason why, because it's the actual name of a building versus Capitol with an A. So anybody that's wondering why Capitol is spelled for O, because that's the actual name. It's just like center, how like center is like CENTRE instead, and in some cases it's TER. Capitol Center in Landover, Maryland had the RE versus center. So one could be just the name of a location, the other one is a position. So that's my understanding of it. But yeah, so the fallout, and man, this is probably going to be one for the record books, as the amount of conspiracy that is spread at all levels, from the top all the way to civilians. Anybody who's in this picture is about to get pulled up on charges. They're about to get that knock on their door. Everybody in this picture. I'm like, probably not literally everybody. Some people, a lot of the people that are not identified, they're not gonna get caught. There are a lot of people that are gonna get away with this, but we ain't just talking about people, just regular folks that are getting caught up in this. There are congressmen that are getting caught up in this. There are police officers getting caught up in this, particularly the Capitol Police, because there were people a part of the Capitol Police that were posing with the rioters that are now charged and implicated. They've lost their jobs, pensions, stuff like that. There are congressmen and congresswomen that now should be under investigation, because now we have 3 Democratic Congress people that are now positive for COVID because they were stuck in the same room with people that didn't want to wear masks. Found out, I read in one article where the panic button in, I think, Representative Presley's office was ripped up. So she couldn't even, if something would have happened, she couldn't do anything because the panic button had been torn off. So it's a lot that I think will take months to decipher, like individuals being jailed, brought up on federal charges, the fact that they did threaten the Vice President of the United States with chance of hang Mike Pence. That's a terroristic threat on federal property. That I think that's death. And there was a whole bunch of people chanting it, so a whole lot of people should be dying just for that. And that's according to the I would figure that's according to the rule. But and of course, like, if we go all the way to the top right now, people are still, like, right now the president, as of earlier today, was impeached for the second time in about a year. Second time, the only president to be impeached twice. You have to be a royal fuck up to be impeached twice. You know what? He kind of pulls even with Elizabeth Warren, because she backstabbed Bernie Sanders twice. So, you know, she stabbed my man Sanders in the back twice, and Trump been impeached twice. So they're not on the same level, but it's like a parallel. That's the only thing he could say he pulled even with. But this man literally was the Atlanta Falcons. He could have gotten out of this scot-free, but no, he had to rile everybody up just before they did this, and just the logistics place him as the blame. Just the logistics alone. You said this, they did this. You're responsible. You should suffer the consequences. But yeah, I feel like Trump is pretty much like the Atlanta Falcons. If you look at the series of events that could have won him his legacy, he was already up 1-0 because he won the first election in 2016. You know, bitch ass Hillary Clinton. You know, she failed. So he was already up 1-0. So that's a series of 3. So he loses the election. Okay, he's already down 1. Now, I don't count the first impeachment because, well, actually, let's see. I don't count the first impeachment because he was not convicted, but he was impeached nonetheless. I don't count that as an L. But you proceed, because of your handling of the pandemic, you proceed to lose the election. So now it's 1-1. And then this. You impeached for a second time. Now the impeachment counts. Both of them count as 1L. So you basically lost a 1-0 lead in a best of 3 and lost 2-1. That man was born an Atlanta Falcon, I swear. But I was thinking of penalties that one could face for stuff like this. Now, obviously, the ultimate penalty is death, but I don't believe in the death penalty in this case. I don't care for the death penalty. The death penalty can stay because people gotta learn. You know, Robert Harris said best, which he would give everything death. You run a stoplight, death. I ain't gonna run no more. I know you ain't gonna do it no more. So for Donald Trump, he's been impeached. He may get convicted. I think it's leaning towards he may get convicted because they can still run the trial, even though he'll no longer be president as of next week. Because crimes that you committed and were charged with while you were chief executive, you can still suffer the consequences at the level of chief executive, even though you're no longer chief executive, which kind of is cool, but we'll see what happens there. But if he were to be convicted, now he will already be out the office, so removal, that's just done by process. He lost the election. Get his bitch ass out of there. So that's already done. But what I would impose is kind of similar to what I proposed on the Sims, not on the Sims. I don't know why I'm thinking the Sims Standard. On First and Frame Rate's podcast. Hopefully we'll be back on, by the way, just a little sidebar. Hopefully we'll be back on tomorrow evening around 7:45, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on VF's channel. Right now he is just away, and you know, prayers, everybody send your prayers up to him. He just lost somebody that was close to him, and right now he's just away. So we don't know if we're gonna have a podcast tomorrow evening, but if we do, you guys will be the first to know. But okay, so my Houston Astros like scenario for Donald Trump. Okay, so death penalty, he doesn't need to die. He just needs to suffer. Because we had to suffer, and it doesn't matter if you supported Trump or if you were against Trump or whatnot. We all suffered due to his inability to understand the seriousness of the situation of this pandemic. I'm just basing it on the pandemic alone. This guy was an FN for everything else leading up to the pandemic. So not even gonna touch that. But just for the pandemic alone, yeah. And then the shit he pulled after the election, yeah. He needs to suffer. So first thing I would do, I would take away all his businesses. All his businesses. He don't even have to own them. They have his name on it. Because obviously his sons, his daughters, I would take away all their fortune, all their money, accounts frozen, because once you become a traitor to this country, once you turn your back on the very nation you swore to defend, all bets are off. If this man were actually tried under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, well, first of all, he'd probably be put to death. But two, I'm going to say that a lot because death is the ultimate consequence for his actions. And for a lot of these other people's actions too. If they were all under the UCMJ, they all get put to death. That would be the highest consequence that all these people would receive. Death. Death to all traitors. That's what would be the consequence. But he's not under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. You know, that's what I had to go by when I was in the Air Force. TSS, we no longer exist, 81st TSS, but we no longer exist. That squadron was defunct as of maybe, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I think. So yeah, I would take away all his businesses, all his fortunes, freeze all his assets. You know, his family would be broke. Take that all away. I would expedite all his current proceedings, hearings, investigations, and stuff like that to a result of guilty. He will be fined how much he has escaped on taxes. Any monies that he's hiding offshores will be seized. He will never be able to run for office ever again. His family members, his sons, daughters, grandsons, granddaughters, if you bear the Trump name through bloodline, you will not hold any power in this country. You will not hold any office, make no laws. You will just be, hell, I would take all their citizenships away. I believe in that form of suffering and be like, look, you are now an illegal immigrant. And from that point on, you have to earn your way. You will have to earn your right to be brought back and be called a United States citizen. Pretty much the same shit you put illegal immigrants through the first time. And I understand illegal immigration is not necessarily about the willingness to break the law as an immigrant. It's more or less sometimes it could be a technicality that the law is broken by a technicality, like paperwork. All of a sudden, like the paperwork expiring and just government not catching up on it. That's a technicality. That's actually what makes up most of the illegal immigration is paperwork that's not being kept up on by the government side. It's not up to the people that are here, that we're here legally, that have to keep up on it. It's up to the government to make sure that everything is on the up and up. if they get to it, and let's say this person's papers expired 10 years ago, and the government finally gets a hold of it, that's the government's fault. The government is supposed to keep track, and there's a lot of people. So back to suffering. So like I said, take all their citizenship statuses away, and they would have to earn the right. And they could leave. They could leave the country. Like I said, you can't harbor traitors here. I'm like, and this would go for all the other people that participated in this, from the regular people that sat there. And mind you, 5 people have died from this. 3 police officers. I think it was 2 police officers, and then 3 of like pro-Trump supporters died. Like the one lady I already talked about last week. She actually was an Air Force veteran, so if she had survived that, her stuff should have been taken away, because any benefits she would have earned, that would have been taken away. Found out there's a gold medalist that was involved in this. His gold medal should be taken, and his citizenship. If you participated in this, no matter what your intent was at the beginning, because I understand this was started off as a peaceful protest. Without Trump riling people up, it would have finished as a peaceful protest. It just would have finished at the Capitol, but not like this. Now, there are reports that are saying that this was pre-planned. I would say half and half. I think angry folks were going to be at the Capitol. I do believe that. But now that we're seeing that the type of equipment that was being used, we have Army lieutenants actively participating. Now, that's when we talk about the UCMJ. Them folks, I don't know what they were thinking. They didn't think they were going to get caught. There's plenty of white privilege here, because if I would have had a group, a mob of people try to storm the Capitol, we would have been shot. We wouldn't have been able to do all this, have a barbecue, hang our flag on the Capitol. No, this would have never happened if it was people of the dark skin variety walking up to the Capitol talking about, we want our country back. They were like, nah. Pow! All that would have taken place if it were us. But yeah, lieutenant colonels participating in treacherous, and they were organized when they did this. And Trump wants. I think some people was like, oh, it's Antifa, but really, no. Antifa didn't have bulletproof vests, even though some of them can, but not in the manner of organization as far as knowing tactics, what to say, how they moved about, how they coordinated different attacks. And then also for the fact, the other thing that when they got in there initially, just to go back and review the actual day of the events, they were in there in a single file walking through calmly like they were going through a tour. So that being said, just to go back on the whole suffering bit. So Trump's no longer a citizen. His kids are no longer citizens. None of them can stay here. They will be classified as illegal aliens. I wouldn't even be like, look, you can have a green card, but you have to do some things to become a citizen again. But like, nope. I would offer the thing that they've tried to refuse others, and that's a path to citizenship, but it's through redemption and attrition that they would have to earn it by. They would have to commit to community service. Trump would have to commit to community service. I wouldn't even put him in any form. I would put him if I would have put Trump in the military, I would put him on some low-level service. I would have his kids enroll in the National Guard, and then if they have kids, when they get older, that family through bloodline will have to serve the military in some form or fashion. It would be just for them, mandatory. They would have to serve the military. Their father, Donald, he skipped out on it, but the others, they would have to be placed in it. just utter death sentence through suffering, not through actual death, because I don't want that man to die, but he needs to suffer. His family needs to suffer, and people who participated in this, they need to suffer, and they need to suffer through actual consequences: jail, community service, citizenship taken away, deportation. If we did deportation, a lot of people would wind up in places that they would not realize they would wind up being. Half of them gonna wind up in like New Zealand or New Zealand wouldn't want any of these people coming there. Some people will wind up in Indonesia. These people don't even know they don't even know their own bloodline. We find out that, you have to send somebody to American Samoa. Oh God. Don't let that happen. You have to send some of these folks to Africa. Send them to like Zimbabwe or Kenya. Send them to Chad. Send them to Egypt. Send them to Iraq. Oh man, place them in the middle of a desert. I would throw everything but death at Trump and his whole family. They don't deserve to profit. They don't deserve to live comfortably. Once Donald J. Trump became a traitor and incited a riot, a mob against the United States Capitol, United States Congress, against his own vice president, who's still a bitch because he doesn't want to invoke the 25th Amendment. So the fact that and Pence, he's in trouble too because he tried to pacify everything for all that time. So, and a lot of other people did too. So, yeah, they will all have to suffer. And I don't know what that would make me, but that's a scenario I would look at as far as punishment for everybody involved in this act. Because this was a treacherous act, and as a United States veteran of the United States Air Force, I swore to defend this country against enemies, foreign and or domestic. I don't know if it said and or, but that's pretty much what it is. I'm like, more than likely you're gonna be fighting foreign enemies, but in this case, being African American, there's more domestic enemies than foreign that I could be up against, that most people like me are up against. So but the one person who really has to suffer and pay for it, and I'm gonna say it here, and I don't know what it's gonna mean for my channel because big tech likes to censor. Well, I'm gonna say it anyway. I'm gonna just see what happens. Hillary Clinton. That's right, I said it. I think she's the brains behind this whole thing. Here's my reasoning, and follow me on this. Remember, they asked her a question about who she considers her enemy. She didn't point out a foreign country as like her number one enemy. She literally said Republicans were her enemy. So if you consider somebody your enemy, what are you willing to do to crush that enemy? And she's in the profession of dominating and crushing and intimidation and stuff like that. Like, look at her record as far as countries that have been invaded, Gaddafi murdered, stuff like that, and a whole bunch of other things. So that she's had her hand in. The crime bill, a lot of black men were locked up under that. She had her hand in that too. So she's been involved in a lot of that stuff. People don't realize how powerful this woman is. But a lot of people forget that her and Trump are friends. They are friends. They are still friends. I don't care what you see, what it looks like. They are friends. Trump's been a part of different political parties. He's been a Democrat. He's been an independent. He's lately been a Republican. Not the typical Republican. He's more like a trashy Democrat, centric, whatever, independent. He's more like an independent libertarian, whatever. He obviously they have the Tea Party in the Republican side, but either way, he's not your typical, and he's not really a politician. But again, going back to the premise that if you consider somebody your enemy, you're going to defeat them at all costs, and you're willing to do whatever it takes to do it. So I felt like she sent Trump in there to destroy that party from the inside. Just pretty much how this whole thing with the Capitol was perpetrated. From the inside out. It's a pattern that we see from back in during the Roman times with the Trojan horse. This is the Trojan horse method of insurrection. The Trojan horse method of how you destroy your enemy. And at the end of the day, oh, and one other thing, she did birth the movement because she tried that shit with Obama when she ran against him in the primary back in 2008, 2007 or something like that. Yeah, she laid the groundwork for the birthing movement. It's funny that Trump picked up on it. Not anyone else. Trump picked up on it. So you gotta just follow the dots and see where they lead you to come to the conclusion that I've come up with. Now, obviously, that's going to be considered blasphemy. I may get... this channel may get, taken down because big tech is involved in censorship, which is their right as a big tech. But just remember, there's a law in place that gives them immunity that they don't really have to take my channel anywhere. They don't have to take anybody else's voice away on their stage. If they didn't have it, they would have to police it more. But the immunity gives them the right to choose who to. And I'm all for free speech, but I also understand the limits of it when it comes to, what you can do, what you can't do. I know when you serve in the military, you really don't have free speech. It's just the way it is. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, I look at Hillary Clinton, I'm just like, you sent them in there to do that. And because of his actions, he's literally destroyed the Republican Party from the inside out. And in the process, has taken the country down with him. And you sent them. Alright, so I may not have a channel after I'm done with this, but I'd like to thank everybody that came through. A few people came through. Again, just trying this new time at 10, and I've gone on for about an hour and some change, so I think it's a good time, better than any to wrap up. So, Spectacular Pooh came through, Bills was here. Let me go back. I know there was another person, Kiki Kalka. Let me see. This may be too late. Let me just read what this person said. I know he or she, I don't know if it's a male, female, So it says, can you help me a bit with my English? I say I'm not a native speaker. I just need to know, is it, look, I can't even make out what that is. I mean, what they're trying to say. But I would say, the way I would read it as, I just need to know, is it look normally for Native Americans, for example. So, I don't know. But, so hopefully I'm back next week. Hopefully I do have a channel, because I don't think Twitch or any tech company would take kindly to conspiracy theories. And I wouldn't say it's much of a conspiracy theory because these are based on stuff that actually has happened. It's just connecting the dots and understanding that one is like the other, even though they portray themselves different than another. That's just the way it is. So hopefully you guys have a good night. Be safe. Again, this is DJ1 signing out. I'll be back again. Well, I hope to be back again next week. Like I said, I don't know what Twitch is planning to do. You know, just a theory. I'm just saying, just a theory. Just a theory. That's all I'm saying. It's just a theory. I know of people that are Facebook friends with me that'd be pissed off because I said what I said. But, you know, it is what it is. I said what I said. Deal with it. Jeez. Sensitive ass biatches. But anyway. Alright, so I'm out. You guys take it easy. Peace.